Welcome back to the FIFA World Cup with two up front. There's been a lot of action on the field, but there's been some other things that have been happening off of the field. We've seen the FIFA president watching from the boxes, and some of his cohorts, a very particular one, also had some things to say beyond what is happening on the field of play or as part of what happened prior to the games. Chuck, a certain Monsieur Wenger had some interesting words. Care to share those with us?
So Arsene Wenger says the teams who performed well were mentally ready. They had focus on the competition and not on political demonstrations. So obviously there were teams who were considering wearing the armband and all these other things, Wales, England, but the team in focus was Germany because at kickoff with the team photo, they had their mouth covered with their hand as a sign of we are silenced and we actually want to speak out against what's happening in Qatar. And surprise, surprise, they lose their first game to Japan. And as of course the tournament continues, they are the team that eventually gets knocked out. And so Arsene Wenger is saying their minds were elsewhere and they got knocked out with only 3 games to play in the group stages. You want to win your first game, get you in a good position to then qualify. Do you think these words are true by Arsene Wenger, that they were distracted?
So I suppose the other team that he might be referring to is Denmark, because we know what their kit sponsor had said. They don't want to be visible during this World Cup for the reasons of the controversy surrounding the World Cup. And you saw what happened to Denmark, one of the teams which I personally had like as the dark horses. And the ironic thing is both Denmark and Germany had the most points coming out of qualification from Europe, and both of them out in the first round. It's very convenient for Arsene Wenger to draw those parallels. I think it's a false parallel that he's drawing. The thing to remember is that Arsene Wenger, formerly a football coach, is now part of the FIFA team. And he's one of the guys who keep commenting about the fact that all the changes that they want to bring into football, the research has shown that the kids want this to happen. So there's very clearly propaganda kind of talk that is coming from Wenger. He is pushing an agenda. We know that FIFA have been scrambling throughout this tournament to try smooth over them being in that country with everything that has happened. And everyone who's then going to speak on behalf of FIFA, even if they don't officially say that, but because they represent FIFA as employees of FIFA, are going to be saying things along the lines of what Wenger is talking about. Because what Wenger is talking about is that classic LeBron James quote, shut up and dribble. Like, if you were just focused on football, then you would have done well at the World Cup. What of that champions curse that we're talking about in previous tournaments, where previously you win the World Cup, coming to the next World Cup, and then you knocked out in the first round? Did that have anything to do with demonstrations? Did that have anything to do with teams not being fully focused on their game, but something else off the field? No, it didn't. These things happen in football. And I just think it's a low-hanging fruit. We're just trying to take advantage of something that he shouldn't be. And I kind of feel this is low for even like for not for FIFA, because this is who FIFA are.
Yep.
And I was going to say for Wenger, but Wenger is now a part of FIFA. And FIFA is a cancer that just infects everybody. And here is Arsene Wenger representing those who cut his checks.
So I think when you get hired by FIFA, you have to speak FIFA language. I think while he was a coach, I don't think he would have said all these changes are necessary in football. I mean, when you look at the additional games, as you said, the kids want to see more games. I don't know which kids he's talking about. When you look at the fact that there were protests and concern over Qatar hosting the World Cup, he has to come through and then say, you guys who are protesting, see what it's done you. Nothing. You guys are out. But he forgets that teams like England were debating whether to wear the rainbow armband or not, and they won 6 in their first game. And he counts them as teams who were focused, won their first game. It's like, well, there is no parallel of truth there in terms of when you're applying that particular logic. And as you're saying, 2020 is, you can say in a biased way to affirm your agenda, that in hindsight you can say, they're the ones who took that photo with their mouths covered up. But when you look at them, you're like, okay, well, from the Nations League, Germany weren't really performing very well. And you're like, well, they didn't quite gel and find rhythm to actually perform this tournament. So there are other factors besides them protesting, because there are so many other teams who did protest and others went through and others didn't. So I don't think Arsene Wenger actually has a point. But to that, Jay, I want to ask you the question, right? Because Germany had been knocked out in the group stages for a second consecutive time at the World Cups. At the Euros, they were knocked out by England as well. Should Germany be concerned about their actual international performances?
I mean, the results suggest that they should, because the reason that they parted ways with Joachim Low and went with Hansi Flick is because it felt as though that era from Klinsmann in 2006, when Low then took over after that, became world champions, made it to the final of the Euro Championships in 2012, where they were defeated by Spain. It felt as though it had come to an end, it had run its cycle, and that culminated in being knocked out in the first round in 2018. So you go with Hansi Flick, who is successful at Bayern Munich, has won the treble with Bayern Munich, and he has a very attacking philosophy. And they did well, as I'm saying, in qualifying, you know. But ultimately, when they got to the World Cup, this World Cup of shocks, they didn't do well. And second consecutive tournament where they knocked out in the first round in terms of World Cups. And this is not Germany. Like, you expect Germany to go deep into World Cups. Even if they're not winning it, you're expecting them to get to the quarters, to get to the semis, to win a penalty shootout along the way, you know? And this Germany that we've seen in the last 3 tournaments, because they were knocked out by England in the Euros in the second round, which is, again, this was the hoodoo team for England in knockout tournaments.
Yeah.
This is a low in German football. So yes, they should be concerned, and maybe part of that concern is the fact that there is but one team that keeps running away with their local league, and this does not bode well in terms of development of or identifying talent in other places, like within other German teams. So maybe it needs a revisiting of the Bundesliga. I think Flick is still a good coach. There are issues with him. He's not yet figured out how to coach defense. I've said that before.
Yeah.
And the players that they have at their beck and call, like Özil, that's supposed to be the defensive rock. He cannot be the guy who is manning the back of a German team who just want to attack, you know?
Yeah.
So I think there are some pieces to feel good about. German, like Musiala.
Yeah.
But overall, perhaps it's a matter of completely moving away from a certain generation. Your Mullers of this world, their time has come and gone. And then identifying new talent. This happened with England. They did not qualify for the Euros, I believe, in 2016. And having been knocked out, I think, in the first round of the World Cup in 2014. Look at them now, you know. So they are a footballing nation and they can recover. At the moment, though, this is a very bleak moment in German football. And they should be concerned, and they actually should not be relying on the fact that they're Germany and they'll just bounce back. They need to visit how they're going about forming a good national team.
I think I totally agree with you in terms of they should be worried, because you get a player like Joshua Kimmich who's saying, personally, he feels like he's part of the problem, because as soon as he joined 2018 World Cup, they get knocked out in the group stages. He's part of the German national team now again, and they get knocked out in the group stages. So he's wondering, am I part of the team that is not particularly good? And I think that idea of them being Germany, as you were saying, is a hindrance, because the golden generation has come and gone and they got their title, right? And I think them culling off all the older players early was, I think, to their detriment, because it seemed like the new generation was ready to come in, above Havertz, above Werner. But when you look at them carefully, they're not yet quite ready to be the stars of the German team. And Toni Kroos is gone. Yes, Müller was called back, but I think they should have transitioned a bit more smoother. About Ozil, they were cut out and they were like, guys, we're done with you guys. We're ushering in a new generation. I think when you then look at that, the litmus test has put the German team under pressure. And not too many of them can actually say that I performed well for my national team and for the club as well. Because, I mean, apart from the Bayern players, how many Germany players can you see are playing very well? Like, Süle is not very strong. Thilo Kerr, you saw from when he's joined West Ham, Mawuti, if you go down his channel, you're most likely to get success via him. And that's how goals have been coming through. Against, who did he play? Is this Korea? South Korea, right? Thilo Kerr, why? And he's covered Süle. It's like what you had with Liverpool, where if they go past Trent, who's the cover? Gomez. You're like, that's insufficient. And then when you've got a manager like Hansi Flick, who is pro-attacking football, and you've got those problems behind you, you've got issues. So, I mean, it's not a quick fix, but it's something definitely to be concerned about, because they are Germany. They have to represent and be as strong as Germany are always strong. I mean, if Brazil had that crisis, or if Argentina had that crisis, alarm bells would go ringing. So I think they should actually take a pause, look at how the team's actually constructed. If you need to introduce a Toni Kroos for 6-month period or for the Nations League or whatever, just to get the rhythm of the team back, then you can go into that. I mean, if you look at Spain is still using Sergio Busquets. It's not just Pedri and Gavi who are thrown into the deep end. Guys, you guys are good enough. You play Champions League and whatnot. It's like, Busquets still needs to be the pivot for this team. And then after a while, we'll find someone else. Maybe Roger will push forward and be in the team. So I think they should be worried. It is very concerning.
It's time to find more Jermaine Musialas because he looks world class. Joshua Kimmich is the only other one who you can say safely is world class, I think. And that's a bit touch and go since his battles with COVID. So, yeah, man, Germany have work to do.